Hey everybody, it's Dashing Knight here. Sorry it took so long to get this second chapter up. Things were coming up, and well, I'll tell you one thing: Prince of Penguins is gonna have a total surprise coming up. I know, I know, I kind of half spoiled it by saying that, but I just couldn't help it. Yeah. So with that, nothing else much left to say, but for me to start reading now. Chapter 2 of Octascratch Pranks. Then came great friendship. Completely reprehensible and utter disgrace to the already nearly forgotten name of classical music. Frederick, if you please, in all my years I've never had to witness such mockery of the arts by one of their own, no less. Frederick Horseshoepin was trotting back and forth, ears technically twitching, leaving Octavia rather worried for his health by this point. She was immediately shaken aback to her own current situation by twin glares from either side of where she sat on the velvet hoofstool, as if an interrogation procedure, which in this situation seemed to, by all accounts, be becoming. If enough had not already happened to qualify the stay as the worst of Octavia's life, this new development fully cemented it. Once the ensemble members had discovered the events that concluded today's concert, all three had arrived at Octavia's apartment, without so much as a hello after being invited in. Frederick, flanked by Harpo and Beauty Brass, had immediately launched into a triad against Octavia that had lasted about 10 minutes now. The celloist, dressed only in pale blue pajamas, sat quivering slightly on the stool, trying desperately to make herself heard as Frederick's rant filled her drooping ears. "Please, Frederick, all of you, if you just listen." "I think it's you who needs to listen, given how much we've already had to listen about your carving around the stage and through the streets in your undergarments." It was as though his stuffiness barely allowed him to say the name of the simple article of clothing. Octavia nearly rose at the indignation of the accusation, only to receive another disapproving look by the saxophone and harp players. She sunk back into her seat and tried again. None of that was my fault. I was caught off guard. Brass scoffed. "As if. You're quite lucky the royal guards haven't carted you away in the exhibition charge, Octavia." Octavia looked into her young colleague's green eyes, her own starting to well up as a blush crept across her cheeks for what seemed like the umpteenth time that day. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. You have to believe me. None of that was intended. You all think I wasn't utterly humiliated? You actually think that I enjoyed what that punk did to me?" Frederick raised an eyebrow. "I see no evidence to the contrary," he smirked. "I know of your kind, so desperate for attention they're willing to doff their trousers in public, in front of fools." "There's no place for a flasher in our ensemble," said Brass. Harpo silently nodded in agreement. "It is as if more juvenile than outright criminal," Frederick carried on, ignoring Octavia's horrified expression at being called these things. "We're not going to have you arrested, but as of this moment, you're out of the ban, as they say." The apartment, the world, the hoofstool itself seemed to spin. Breathing short but silent breaths, Octavia watched as Brass and Harpo stood up on either side of her and joined Frederick as he headed toward the door. No more words were exchanged, as if Octavia needed to hear any more. Her career was over. She was never going to play again. Her eyes glazed over as the three ponies left without looking back. It felt like an eternity before Octavia finally got to her hind legs. Or perhaps she tried several times and stumbled on the first few. Her spinning head flat out blocking any pain of impact with the floor. She could feel the tears, though, fully flowing now and leaving the fur on her face soaked, her lip quivering, and her stomach felt as it had free-fallen into the bottom of her hindquarters. She turned her head mechanically to glance out the window, watching her ex-bandmates depart into the night. How could they not have believed her? Had there truly been no weight to her claims, or had they simply wanted an excuse to be rid of her? Octavia's thoughts swam with depressing questions, but she was too exhausted, embarrassed, and hurt to try and answer them. After a long while she spent seemingly staring out the darkened window, deep silver clouds rolling in under Luna's moon. The earth pony walked over and opened the said window. The night air was pleasantly cool without being chill, and the faint breeze made the wetness of Octavia's cheeks sting slightly. Taking a deep breath, Octavia reached for a lavender bathrobe laying on a chair under the window and donning it, turned away and headed towards her front door, wiping her face briefly with her sleeve, with no thought given to her eye makeup. She left her apartment. Unfortunately, she had nowhere to go. This time of night, most places in the town would be closed. With a glum sigh, she instead took a seat at the top of the stairs leading to her floor. Her tail curled into her lap. She knew she had to stay strong and not let today's events destroy her. She thought of her cello, still safe in her apartment. I can still play it, she thought to herself. Even if there be no pony to hear it but me, she thought of the apartment itself. At least I still have a roof over my head. But for how much longer? She asked herself in response. How am I to pay the rent now? Where's the pay going to come from? From now, I'm... Frederick's cruel words echoed. Out of the band. Her struggle to think positive continued with each passing moment. Her heart was telling her to just weep into her hooves. Before she could halt her argument, however, a familiar voice from behind broke the silence. Octavia? Hearing Vinyl's speaker name provoked rather mixed feelings from Octavia, to say the least. But it was spoken in such a way that it sounded so unlike the pony, who had shamed her mere hours earlier, that she turned her head almost impulsively. There was Vinyl in what was presumably her own sleepwear. Nothing more than a pair of blue boxers with white polka dots and a white t-shirt bearing the words Wub Wub. She definitely gave off an air of having no modesty at all. She had her glasses off as well, showing those startling red eyes, the look in them resembling that of a broken doll. Hey, she softly uttered. Octavia's instincts were telling her to leave Vinyl to rot, but somehow Vinyl looked so concerned that she ignored them. Instead, she sniffled and slightly patted the spot next to her on top of the stairs with a hoof. Vinyl hesitated, looking about to say something else, but she finally took the offered seat and cringed slightly. Octavia noticed and quietly asked, "How have you been since earlier?" "Oh, I've been okay," Fauna replied sheepishly, never quite meeting Octavia's gaze as she faintly blushed. "That was a heck of a wedgie, Tavi. Flank's still stinging a little. I hope yours isn't too She broke off, realizing that she should never finish that sentence as long as she lived. Octavia, however, barely heard anything following what she'd just been called. Tavi. Octavia didn't know many ponies who tossed out these sorts of pet names, but something about it struck a chord. "Otherwise, I've been better," Final continued, breaking Octavia out of her pondering. "I caught a little crap from my manager. Turns out my next gig got pushed forward a week, to today in fact, and I sort of forgot." There was no denying the redness of her white cheeks. "I guess I got a little distracted thinking about how I was gonna prank you." Her eyes finally met Octavia's. "I'm not even gonna ask how your get-together with those guys went. I heard them talking as they left." She paused and sighed. "I'm really, really sorry about this morning." Octavia bit her lip. She was startled how many emotions were still fighting for control within her. "I guess I'm out of the job because of you," she said frankly. "I'm sure to get quite a few odd looks whenever I go into town, and yet," she blinked and smiled a tiny smile, "bizarrely enough, I'm sorry you got in trouble." "Don't be. That's super sweet, but..." Final paused again, her own eyes glistening. "But don't be. It was my fault, just like everything else today. I'm so sorry. I just don't always think about things. I was totally immature, embarrassing you like that. You lost your job, probably your reputation." Fighting back tears, she said, I still have your pants from back there. Want me to, like, give them back?" Octavia couldn't help but giggle softly, in spite of everything. She understood exactly what this offer meant. Sure, she and Vinyl could not be bigger opposites, but did it really mean they hated each other? Somehow, Octavia refused to believe that, and after all, hadn't she taken some fairly radical steps at the concert to get back at Vinyl? Could a friendship be blossoming out of nothing short of humiliation? "In fact, since you might not necessarily be bringing in as many bids as before, would you maybe..." Vinyl's hesitant words broke Octavia's pondering yet again. The two ponies' distinctive eyes met again as Vinyl blurted out, "Do you want to live with me? No catch, I swear," she added, seeing the subtle but clear surprise in Octavia's expression. "I've never had a roommate before, but we'll share everything. You and me, 50-50, down the middle. Fairer trade than my record deals, at least. And my gigs bring in a bid or two, I'll tell you that." She looked almost desperate, but not like some pony attempting a shady business deal, so much as some pony simply seeking a commandeer. "I know this isn't even beginning to make up for messing up your concert, but I want you to know I am sorry," Vinyl continued. "If I promise to never sabotage your shows or anything like that again, could you ever forgive me and think it over?" It was obvious now. Octavia knew the feeling exactly. Despite many fashionable acquaintances throughout Equestria, she realized Not for the first time, she had no pony to call a best friend, a surrogate sister, a shoulder to lean on, as a lyric in one of her favorite Full Hood songs said. And on that note, she slowly replied, I have already forgiven you. The answer is yes. Vinyl was herself taken aback, but didn't show it. Her cheeky smile returning in full now. Thanks. I'm not usually this soft, but I guess you bring out my fun side, she said half-jokingly. Oh, Octavia replied with a smile of her own. And exactly which side of you were you demonstrating when you pulled my trousers down? She reached out a hoof and wiped Vinyl's eyes. Come on, she said gently. Let's start over. My name is Octavia Philharmonica. Your turn, Vinyl. Vinyl playfully mussed Octavia's mane. DJ Pony, at your service, Tavi. But you've earned the right and privilege of calling me Vinyl Scratch. Oh, sorry, she caught herself. Octavia. Octavia slowly hushed her. At least it's better than Octi, she said. With a concurrent blush, the two ponies stood, Octavia giving Vinyl a wink after the last remark. Then, for no particular reason, she took Vinyl in a hug that seemed to come as another surprise. What? Octavia queried, sensing this. Vinyl replied, I just never thought you'd be so cool after ever... Not another word, Vinyl, Octavia muttered. Show me to your place. I might as well get comfortable there, since I'll be out of my own before long. Vinyl smiled wryly. Yeah, let's scram before we get caught in our pajamas. Octavia momentarily eyed Vinyl's boxers, and her cheeks went a little pink. Then the DJ took the cello as his hoof and began leading her up the stairs to the floor just above. As they ascended, both ponies thought this day was the start of something new between them. One thing leads to another, as they say. Vinyl was wondering whether she actually gotten the stuffed shirt to loosen up a bit, considering she never expected her to forgive her, let alone agree to her offer. Octavia, on the other hoof, just wanted a semi-decent cup of tea and a good night's sleep on her own soon-to-be roommate sofa. And who knows? Ideas for a few retaliatory pranks, preferably involving Vinyl's undies and perhaps a can of shaving cream, might just come to her in a dream. The end. Well, every pony, I hope you enjoyed this story. I totally did. And I was just completely honored that Birds and Penguins allowed me to read this, record it, and post it on YouTube. And again, sorry for some of the mess ups. I just get so excited and nervous all at the same time when I be reading these stories. I mean, I just can't help myself sometimes. There's just an overload. I really can't help it. But, I mean, it just makes me so happy. You know. Because these stories are just awesome. Because Prince of Penguins is awesome. And again, that's all I really have to say. And goodbye for now, every pony.